Hello everyone, and welcome to today's video. Before we get started, I wanted to let everyone know that we currently have YouTube memberships enabled, so if you want early access to videos, extra bonus content monthly, as well as other features only available to members, consider supporting the channel by clicking the join button and becoming a YouTube member. Thank you to all the viewers who submitted these stories. Remember to leave a like and subscribe, and enjoy the show. This happened when I was around 19 or 20 years old. It was kind of at the outskirts of St. Paul, where a lot of us grew up around the same neighborhoods, same stores and churches and places and stories where elders tell us to not play around with empty houses. At that age, I didn't really listen to those warnings. I believed in ghosts in a way, but I also thought that most of those stories were fake. That summer, one of my cousins told me about an abandoned house near his friend's neighborhood. It was not deep in the woods or anything like that. It was just sitting between normal houses behind overgrown bushes with plywood over a few windows and weeds growing up through the porch. The city had put up some kind of notice on the front door, but the paper already had faded from the rain. People said that the house had been empty for years. My cousin said that the place was haunted. He heard that a Hmong family used to live here a long time ago, but they left suddenly. Some people said that there was a death in the house. Some said that the owner went crazy, and some said nothing happened and the family just moved. Everyone had a different story, but we didn't take it seriously. There were 4 of us that night. Me, my cousin B, his friend Lang, and another guy named Meng. We did not go there planning to do anything evil or disrespectful. We were just bored and stupid. We had flashlights, our phones, and one pocket knife that Meng carried because he always carried something. We parked down the street so no neighbors would see us, then walked through the alley behind the house. The first thing that I noticed was the smell. It was not a dead animal smell. It was more like wet wood, an old carpet, and a little bit of something sour underneath it, kind of like trash. The back door was already open a little, like someone had forced it before us. B pushed it with his foot, and it made this long creaking sound that felt too loud for the quiet neighborhood. Inside, the kitchen was dark and damp. There were old cabinets with some doors hanging crooked. The floor had dirty tiles, and there was broken glass near the sink. Someone had spray-painted words on the wall, but I couldn't read most of it. At first, it felt like any abandoned place. Creepy, but not haunted. Just empty. We walked from the kitchen into the living room. There was an old couch still there, covered in dust and ripped open on one side. A mattress leaned up against the wall. I remember thinking that it was probably used by homeless people or teenagers who came there before us. That made me more nervous than any ghost because real people are sometimes more scary than spirits. The house had a small hallway that led to 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. B kept joking around, saying, "If there's a ghost here, knock twice." Nobody laughed that much because once you're inside a place like that, jokes don't feel as funny. In the first bedroom, we saw children's stickers still stuck to the closet door. There were these old cartoon stickers. A few were peeling off, but you could still see them. For some reason, that just made the house feel sad. Not scary yet, just sad. Like someone's normal life had been left behind. The second bedroom was almost empty, except for a plastic storage bin in the corner. Len kicked it lightly, and something rattled inside. He opened it and found old papers, a cracked picture frame with no photo, and a small red string tied around a dried bundle of something. It looked like leaves or herbs wrapped in cloth. I told him to leave it alone. He looked at me and laughed. "Now you're scared?" I told him that we should just not touch other people's stuff. That was the truth. Even then, something about that little bundle bothered me. It didn't look like trash. It looked like someone placed it there on purpose. It seemed like black magic. Lang picked it up anyway. He held it under his flashlight and said that it smelled bad. Then he tossed it back into the bin. The second it hit the plastic, we heard a sound from the basement. It was a slow knock, just one. We all stopped talking. Meng whispered if it was one of us, but nobody answered right away. Then the knock came again. This time it was lower, like it came from underneath our feet. B tried to act calm and said that it was just probably an animal or something. The house, though, had no power, no water, and no reason for anything to be knocking from below. Still, we told ourselves that it was probably the house settling. Old houses make noises, and that was what we kept saying. We found the basement door near the kitchen. It was partly open. The stairs went down into complete darkness. The air coming from below felt colder than the rest of the house. Not winter cold, but basement cold, wet and heavy. None of us wanted to go down first. We stood there for a while, shining our flashlights down the stairs like idiots. Finally, Meng told us to go and take a quick look and then leave. We all agreed with him and decided to go take a look and leave. We went down slowly. The basement was unfinished with cement floors and exposed beams. There were old paint cans and broken furniture. They had a washing machine down there that looked like it did not work at all. In the far corner, someone placed a small wooden chair facing the wall. That was the part that made me feel uneasy. The chair was not tipped over or thrown with the rest of the junk. It was sitting upright, perfectly straight, facing the corner like somebody had put it there for a reason. Ling shined his flashlight on it and said, "What the heck?" As soon as he said that, all of our flashlights flickered. Not at the same exact time. Mine dimmed first, and then B's and Meng's and then Ling's. For a second, the basement looked like it was breathing light in and out. Then, we heard a woman whisper. It was so soft that I almost thought that I imagined it, but I didn't understand what it was saying. It was like it was speaking a different language. That was enough for me. I told my friends that we were leaving, and nobody argued. We went up the stairs fast, almost climbing all over each other. When we got into the kitchen, the back door was closed. I knew that it was open. We all knew that it had been open. B tried to turn the handle, and it wouldn't turn. He cursed under his breath and pulled harder. The door finally opened with a sticky sound, like it had been pressed shut from the outside. We ran back to the car after that. On the way home, everyone was quiet. Lang tried to laugh it off and said that someone was probably hiding in the basement, messing with us. But nobody believed that. If someone had been down there, we would have heard them move. And that voice was not loud like a person trying to scare us. It was right next to us, but it also sounded far away. Now, this is the part of the story that you would expect it to end here. But it did not. The first thing that I noticed at my house was the smell. 2 nights after we went to that place, I woke up at around 3 a.m., and my house smelled exactly just like the house that we went to, that abandoned house. I thought that maybe my window was open, but it was closed. Then I heard tapping on the wall behind my bed. It wasn't fast and it wasn't loud, just kind of subtle. I sat up and listened. My younger brother slept in the room next to mine, so I thought that he was maybe tapping from his side, so I knocked back once. Everything went quiet. Then, something knocked from inside my closet. I jumped out of bed and turned on the light. The closet door was open about a couple of inches. I always kept it closed because my room was small and it looked messy. I grabbed a shoe from the floor and pulled the door open. Nothing was inside except clothes and boxes. I did not sleep that much that night. Over the next week, more weird things happened. My mom asked why my clothes would smell musty even after she washed them. My dad kept complaining that someone kept on leaving the garage door cracked open a little bit. My little brother told me that he heard someone whispering from the hallway while he was playing games at night. I still didn't tell my parents about the abandoned house. I was embarrassed and scared that they would get mad at me. My parents were pretty strict during this time. But during this time, I remember I started to have these dreams. In the dream, I was back in that basement. The chair was facing the corner. I could hear somebody crying upstairs, but I couldn't move. Then the chair slowly turned by itself. I would wake up before seeing who was sitting in it. The third time I had the dream, I saw her. She was an older lady with long gray hair, sitting on the chair with her back bent forward. Her face was hidden, but I could see her hands resting on her knees. She didn't move. I just remember her speaking to me in Hmong, saying in an old Hmong voice, "You opened the house." And then I woke up with my nose bleeding. It was gushing blood. I had to go to the bathroom to go and wash it all off. That was when I knew that something was wrong, but my pride got in the way and I still didn't tell my parents during this time. Eventually, I got really sick and my parents could see it on my face. There were days where I had to skip work. That was when my mom knew that something was wrong. She looked at me and asked what I did. I told her everything, from the house that we went to, from the weird dreams and the strange whispers that we heard. She didn't yell at me like I expected. She just sat there quietly and listened. Then she called my grandma, and my grandma told her that we needed to call a shaman because something might have followed me home. She said that some places are closed for a reason, and when people enter without respect, lost spirits could follow them home. A couple of days later, my family took me to visit a shaman. He was an older man that my family kind of knew. He looked like any other regular uncle, and he asked me where I went, what I touched, and if I took anything. I said that I didn't take anything, but I explained the whole story to him. Then he asked if anyone else in the group touched something. I felt cold when he asked that. I told him that Ling had found this bundle with the red string tied around it, and he picked it up. The shaman said that the thing might have not only followed me, but it might have followed the path of whoever was the easiest to scare or had the most sensitive and weak spirit. After that, we set up the event for the ceremony that next following weekend. The shaman set up his altar in our living room and began his ritual. I remember, as I was sitting on the bench while he was doing his ritual, he stopped and looked toward the hallway, still with the headdress on his face. He asked out loud, "Who is standing by the room?" Nobody answered because nobody was there, but our hallway light flickered 3 times. After that, he chanted some more strange words and it stopped. But once the ceremony was over, the house felt lighter, and the smell that I kept smelling disappeared, the tapping stopped, and I stopped having those bad dreams. Now during this time, I was still talking with my friends, and they both admitted that strange things happened at their houses too, but not as bad as me. Leng refused to talk about it at all. A month later, he moved out of his parents' house and stayed with relatives for a while. He never really told us why. I don't know what was in that abandoned house, and I don't know if it was the spirit of someone who had lived there or something else that had been placed behind. I just know that after that night, I stopped going to those abandoned houses. Me and Meng still like to go and explore those abandoned houses, but I stopped completely. Hey guys, before we go on to the next story, quick message from today's sponsor, which is me. I don't have a sponsor. We are currently generating over 100,000 views per month, each video averaging between 5,000 to 10,000 views, which will only grow larger as this channel nears 10,000 subscribers. So if you're interested or know anyone interested in partnering up with this channel, shoot me a message at my email in the description below. I'm sure we can work something out. Thank you all for supporting the channel. This will definitely help support my crippling addiction to my adult beverages. And without further ado, on to the next story. This happened in Oklahoma, on a family farm that used to belong to my uncle. My uncle was my dad's older cousin, but we just called him Uncle. He owned a farm outside a small town in Oklahoma. It was quiet there. The nearest neighbor was far enough that at night, if you heard something outside, you knew it was either an animal, the wind, or something that should have not been there. The property had a main house, a long gravel driveway, a few sheds, fenced areas, and some locked greenhouse-looking buildings in the back. I will not say exactly what he grew there, but it was the kind of crop where adults lowered their voices when they talked about it. My uncle was not close to many people near the end of his life. He had divorced his wife years before and was distant from his children. He also had a woman overseas in Laos. Some relatives called her his girlfriend, and some called her his wife, but many of them called her his mistress. I never knew it was true, but I only knew that he talked to younger women from Laos a lot, and he wanted to bring over his mistress to America, but the paperwork never worked out. Immigration rules are a lot stricter now than they were back then, and there were things in his situation that made it hard. After that, he became kind of bitter, and he stopped coming around unless there was something else he needed. Then, one day, he passed away by himself in that old farmhouse. A neighbor noticed his truck had not moved for days and called my dad. My dad and another uncle went to check on him, and they found him in the living room, sitting in his recliner like he had fallen asleep watching TV. We had a funeral for him. It was not a huge funeral, but enough family came. His children came too, but they did not stay long. I remember one auntie whispering that his spirit might not leave easily because his heart was still tied to his mistress in Laos. At the time, I didn't think much of it. A few months later, my parents decided that we would move into the farmhouse and take over the property. Rent was getting expensive, and my dad said it made no sense to let family land sit empty. He said that we could clean the place, manage the crop, and save money. When we moved in, the house still felt like it belonged to my uncle. His old boots were by the back door, his shot glasses were still in the cabinet, and his recliner was still in the living room because my dad said it was too heavy to move right away. The first thing that we noticed was this black cat. It showed up about a week after we moved in. I saw it sitting near the back shed, all black, skinny, with yellow eyes. At first, I thought it was just a stray. Farms have cats sometimes, but this cat was different. It never came close, it never begged, it only watched the house. My mom left food out for it once, and the cat waited until everybody went inside before eating. Then it disappeared. My dad said to not bother it. He said that cats keep mice away, but my mom did not like it. But why? If your mom didn't like it, why did she leave food out for it? What the heck? After that, the other weird thing happened with the recliner. My dad finally dragged it into the garage because my mom hated looking at it. She said that whenever she passed it at night, she felt like someone had just gotten up from it. For 2 days, the living room felt better. Then, one morning, my little sister walked into the kitchen and asked, "Why did my dad move the chair back?" We looked into the living room. The recliner was there again. It was turned toward the TV with the footrest halfway up. My dad got mad because he thought one of us was messing around. We told him that we didn't touch it, that the chair was heavy. Nobody could have dragged it across the house quietly in the middle of the night. My dad said that maybe he remembered wrong. Maybe he didn't push it all the way out into the garage. Sometimes, at night, we would hear kitchen cabinets open and close. Not loud, but just soft sounds, like someone looking for a cup. My mom would turn on the light and check, but nothing was open. My dad would also notice things around the farm. Tools that he left in the shed would show up in the back steps, a hose that would be unrolled after he wrapped it, and one lock on a back building that would be hanging open, but nothing inside looked disturbed. He bought a cheap trail camera and pointed it toward the sheds. Oh god, don't tell me you don't also have footage of this. Almost every night, it caught the black cat. The cat would walk across the gravel, stop near the back building, and stare toward the house. It never moved like it was hunting. It moved like it was checking on something. Around that time, I started hearing someone walking in the hallway at night. Our bedrooms were on one side of the house, and the living room was on the other. There was one floorboard near the bathroom that always creaked. One night I heard that creak. Then I heard slow footsteps going toward the living room. I thought it was my dad, but then the TV clicked on. It was on low volume, muffled voices. I opened my door and said, "Dad?" The TV shut off. Everything went quiet. Then I heard the recliner creak like someone shifting their weight. I turned on the hallway light. The living room was empty, but the recliner was back in its old spot, facing the TV. We moved it into the garage again the weekend before. This was the first time I felt real fear in that house. My dad checked every door and window, and everything was locked. Nothing was missing. Outside, the black cat was sitting by the driveway. When my dad shined the flashlight at it, it did not run. It just stared back at him. A few days later, my mom was cooking when she suddenly froze. She looked toward the hallway and asked if we heard something. At first, I didn't hear anything. Then I heard a man's voice from somewhere in the house. It was soft, almost like someone speaking from another room, but I could not understand all of it. My mom turned off the stove and called my dad in from the shed. When he came inside, he went straight to my uncle's old bedroom. That room had become storage because nobody wanted to sleep in it. By now, my dad was pissed. He was yelling at my uncle's spirit to move on and that he was already dead and for him to not be doing things like this to us. That night, we heard crying outside. It wasn't loud. It came from somewhere near the back field, between the house and the locked buildings. It sounded like someone trying to not cry too hard. My dad said that maybe it was an animal, like a fox or something. The black cat sat on the porch railing that night. It wasn't looking at us. It was looking toward the field. The last thing that happened was what finally made my dad call for help. For about a week, he kept dreaming of my uncle standing by the fence, asking him to open the gate. My dad would say, "The gate is already open, just come through." But my uncle would just point back at the house, angry. Then, one night, my dad woke up gasping. He said he felt someone sitting on the side of the bed. My mom turned on the lamp, and they both saw an imprint in the blanket, like someone had just been sitting there. At this point, the recliner kept on returning back to the living room, so we just decided to leave it there. All of the paranormal activities that happened in that house, we just got used to it. We just said that it was our uncle who passed away. It was a little weird and scary at first, to be honest, but actually he didn't really do anything to us. But still, there were times when it made us feel a little uneasy that the spirit of our uncle was still roaming around on that property. Eventually, my dad called an elder. A few days later, we went to see a shaman in the city. My dad said his older cousin had died in the house and strange things had happened. The shaman listened and he asked if there was any animals that appeared around the property after the funeral. My dad looked at my mom and he said that there was a black cat. The shaman said that my uncle's spirit had not moved on. He said that my uncle was still tied to the land, the house, and his mistress overseas. He said that the anger and sadness carried with him when he died. He said that the cat was not exactly my uncle, but that it was somehow connected. The ceremony was done the following weekend. A lot of relatives came over to our house. We killed a pig and a few chickens, and the shaman performed his ceremony. After the ceremony was completed, the shaman said that he was able to send the spirit of our uncle into the afterlife, and that there was nothing else for us to worry about. And you might not believe it, but after that, all the paranormal activity stopped happening in our house. We were able to throw away that stupid recliner, and it never came back, mainly because my dad and I put it in our truck and we threw it away at the junkyard. But sometimes I get scared that I might find the recliner in the living room sitting there watching TV. Me and my family still live at this house even to this day. A few of my siblings moved out, but I still live here with my parents to help them tend the farm. I lived in Wisconsin for a few years because of work. It was in a city where the Hmong community wasn't very big like the Twin Cities, but big enough where everybody knows somebody who knows your relatives. I moved there with my wife and our 2 kids after I got a better job at a warehouse. We needed a bigger place and renting was getting expensive, so we started to look for a new house. The house we found looked normal. It was a small 2-story home with a detached garage, a narrow driveway, and a fenced backyard. The outside had new siding and the inside had fresh paint. The realtor kept on talking about how the seller had updated the flooring, the cabinets, and the bathroom. It looked clean, too clean, but at the same time, I thought that it was a good thing. My wife liked the kitchen because it had a big window facing the backyard. My kids liked the upstairs bedrooms, and I liked the price. It was lower than the other houses in the area, but not so low that it seemed suspicious. When we asked why, the realtor said that the owner wanted to sell quickly because they had to move out of state. So we bought it. For the first month, or the first few months, nothing happened. We were busy unpacking, changing the locks, fixing little things, and getting used to the neighborhood. My wife's parents came to help. My dad came one weekend and walked through the house quietly. He didn't say anything at first, but before he left, he told me to keep a light on near the stairs at night. I asked why, and like typical Hmong OGs, he just told me to do it. I laughed because my dad likes to say things like that sometimes. But still, I bought a small nightlight and plugged it near the stairs. One of the weird, strange things about that house that I noticed was the smell of cigarette smoke. My wife hates smoke, and she could smell it from far away. One night, we were watching TV after the kids went to bed. Suddenly, the living room smelled like somebody had just lit a cigarette right next to us. My wife looked at me right away. "Do you smell that?" she asked. And I said yes. We checked outside, no neighbors were nearby, the windows were closed because it was cold, and the smell stayed for almost 5 minutes, then disappeared. After that, it happened every few nights. Not every single night, but once in a while. We would always notice it in the living room or near the stairs. Sometimes it smelled like cigarette smoke, sometimes it smelled like old beer, like Budweiser, and I thought that maybe it was coming through the vents. So I changed the furnace filter and checked the basement, but nothing helped. Now, one more thing about this house was that it also had phantom footsteps, I guess you could say. At first, I thought that it was just the kids. Around midnight, we would hear somebody walking upstairs from one bedroom to the hallway, then back again. Slow steps, not running and not playing, just walking. I would go upstairs and both of the kids would be asleep. Their doors would be closed and the hallway would be empty. One time, I heard the steps while I was already upstairs brushing my teeth. They came from the room at the end of the hall, the smaller bedroom that we used for storage. I opened the door, expecting maybe boxes had shifted or maybe a mouse was inside. The room was empty. The boxes were still there, but the room felt like someone had just left before I entered. At one point, my daughter started to refuse to sleep in her own room. She was 6. She said that a man stood by her closet at night. At first, I thought that she was just having bad dreams. My wife thought that maybe she saw shadows from cars passing outside. So we moved her bed away from the closet and bought a brighter nightlight and told her to come get us if she got scared. Then, one morning, she told us about the man that she saw. She said that he had tape over his mouth. I asked her what she meant, and she said that the man by the closet had something dark over his mouth and he always looked mad. I told her that it was just probably a dream, but inside, I felt a little scared. My wife wanted to know the history of the house. I told her not to search because I didn't want her to scare ourselves. That was stupid. When you live in a house, you should know what happened there. But part of me already suspected something, and I didn't want any confirmation. Now, the scariest thing that happened to me was in the basement. Our laundry was down there. The basement was partly finished, with one room that had old wood paneling and another area where the washer and dryer sat. The fresh paint upstairs did not match the basement. Down there, you could see the house was older. The cement floor had cracks, the wood paneling had stains, and there was a small, square patch on one wall where the color didn't match. One night, I went down to switch the laundry. It was around 11:30 or close to midnight. My wife was upstairs and the kids were asleep. As I was moving clothes into the dryer, I heard a man cough behind me. It was a kind of deep cough. I turned around so fast I dropped my clothes. No one was there. I stood still listening, but it was quiet. I decided to run upstairs with our clothes. I picked it all up and told my wife. She didn't laugh. She said that earlier, that same day, while I was at work, she heard something fall in the basement. When she checked, nothing had fallen, but she saw the basement door slowly closing by itself from halfway open. That freaked me out, and I thought that maybe there was an intruder in the house. So I grabbed my gun and a flashlight and went down into the basement to clear it out. But there was nothing down there. To be honest, I was pretty scared. I told myself that if it was a ghost, then these bullets won't do anything to it. But luckily, there was nothing down there. But the whole time, it felt like someone was watching me. One Saturday, my wife's cousin came over with her husband. We hadn't told them that much. We didn't want people thinking that we were crazy and that our house was haunted. But when the cousin walked in, she looked uncomfortable right away. She asked if someone had died in the house. I thought it was kind of weird because that was literally the first thing that she said. My wife and I looked at each other. The cousin said that she wasn't trying to scare us, but she just felt like there was a man in the living room, sitting where the old couch used to be. Not our couch. She said the old couch, even though we had never mentioned that there had been old furniture in the listing photos. That night, I finally searched the address. I found a local news article from years earlier. There had been a murder in the house. A man was killed during an argument. The details weren't all clear, and I'm not going to repeat them because I didn't want to disrespect the dead or the family. But one detail made my hands go cold. The article said that the victim was found in the basement. After that, everything made sense and also didn't make any sense at all. The fresh paint, the low price, the patched wall, all those weird experiences. We considered moving out right away, but that's easier said than done. We had just bought the house, we had bills, we had kids in the school, and, we didn't have anybody to live with. My parents and my in-laws lived farther away. And to be honest, I didn't really believe in all of this paranormal stuff, even though I had experienced it firsthand. I was kind of dumb looking back at it now. I told myself that we were living in the 21st century, the age of technology, and that these supernatural things were just our own imaginations. So we continued to stay in the house. There was one winter where there was fresh snow outside. In the middle of the night, the garage light turned on. The light was motion activated, so I woke up thinking that maybe an animal had passed by. I looked out the bedroom window and saw that the garage side door was open. I grabbed my phone and my gun and went downstairs. I told my wife that somebody might be in the garage. I checked outside and noticed that there were footprints in the snow. They came from the garage door to the back fence, but didn't come from anywhere else. There were no prints entering the yard, just prints leaving the garage and stopping at the fence. The garage was empty. There was nothing that was stolen, and the side door lock was still working. That was one of the last moments that I remembered before we finally left that house. We found a new house through Facebook Marketplace that was closer to my work, Our new house doesn't have anything weird that happens with it. It's a completely normal house. And it seems like whatever it was at the old house didn't follow us to our new place. Guys, I don't think I could ever go into an abandoned house. It would feel just kind of disrespectful because, there's gotta be a ghost or spirit that lives in there. Either that or some residual energy. And what if that abandoned house was used for like satanic cult rituals where they sacrifice human beings and drain their blood onto the floorboard of the living room? Or maybe some random dumb kids decide to bring a Ouija board and do a seance in there and be like, oh my god, Charlie, Charlie, are you there? Do you guys remember the days of Charlie, Charlie? I do. And I'm glad that those days are over. Another story that really stood out to me was that story about that Oklahoma farm property, because I think that's a very relatable story to a lot of us Hmong folk out there. Let me know if you guys have an uncle or a relative that is a player like that. It's a very common kind of trope, common theme in the Hmong community, and it's very relatable. But anyways, let me know what you guys think about the stories in the comment section below. Consider becoming a YouTube member where you'll get early access to videos, extra bonus content monthly, as well as other features only available to members. Click that join button and become a YouTube member. Remember to leave a like and subscribe. We're almost to 10,000 subscribers. And without further ado, I will see you all in the next video.